Hello, everybody. Welcome once again to another installment of A Rebel Without Applause, coming to you as I always do from my little, what can I call it, my nutshell of infinite space. And across our little digital divide today, I have an incredibly special guest. I actually don't even need to identify him because I can see his name right there on the blue thing, Dr. David Kuppermann, MD. We know his specialty because we can read it. It's urology. He's on the other side there. And let me say this about 2.5 months ago, well, I lost a kidney stone and I found a friend. So it was a fair exchange. And the kidney stone is gone. And Dr. Kuppermann is here to talk about his life, his practice, his interesting background. Welcome to A Rebel Without Applause. So pleased to have you here.
Thanks so much, Bill. I'm looking forward to an interesting conversation tonight.
Okay, well, hopefully I can keep up my end. So, an interesting conversation starts with an interesting background, and I'll just start first with my own story with in relation to you. As I just alluded to, at the very end, the beginning of August, rather, I was completely nailed by what turned out to be a kidney stone. I found myself in the emergency room at Cedars after a pleasant 5-hour wait in the waiting room at around 4 in the morning after a CAT scan. I had the pleasure of meeting Dr. Dave, as I guess you were making the rounds or you got summons down to a kidney stone. I'm not exactly how it works, but there you were, and you advised me of my situation. And actually, you not only you advised me of the situation, but you guided me through the process until you extracted it benevolently. I guess was about 5 weeks later. So,
Yep,
thank you.
yep. And to answer your question, no, I wasn't doing rounds. I was summoned to you at 4 in the morning. The best way to meet your best friends are at 4 in the morning.
So you're just lying in bed.
Absolutely. I want people to feel when you see that doctor in the hospital in the middle of the night, they just woke up from their bed and they're coming to see you because they've been summoned.
Well, that puts you in the absolute heroic mode because I didn't know. I had no clue. There you were, and it was so early in the morning, and I was on morphine at the time, and it began a process that clearly was a painful one. Um, but at this moment, I have now I've been gifted now with been able to really appreciate the pleasure of pain-free urination in a way that I never could have a few months ago. Just to feel the just clean passage of my basic biological functions is a joy in and of itself. So thank you for that.
No, you're very welcome. Absolutely.
We I think we kind of take for granted these incredible systems that make our body work, and clearly urology and kidneys and waste elimination, whatever it is critical. And I mean, if it hiccups just for a minute, our life can turn to agony in a heartbeat.
Absolutely, and that's part of the reason really that I decided to become a urologist. Beyond the fact that I observed my first surgery, when I was 8 days old, and I knew, that was that, right with the mole standing right there. I said, I want to be doing what you're doing, but
Oh, the moil. Okay, yeah, 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 right, got it. Yeah, yeah.
no, but in all seriousness, it's really a field where, you see people at their worst. But fortunately, it's the kind of pain that with treatment can really be relieved. And unlike certain, maladies and illnesses where, even when treated, you're not really going back to your baseline and doing great. Certain cases within urology, whether be it a kidney stone, which is tremendously painful, or urinary retention, the inability to pee, which is tremendously painful, you can really make an impact and get people who didn't even know that they were in such a bad situation, get them back. And they're different people when you see them after these intervention, after these medications, after these surgeries. And so you're really going from like a really bad place, but you're coming back to an even better place. And not all fields of medicine or in general, do you get to do that. It's other fields are rewarding in other ways, but certainly within urology, that's one of the things that certainly drew me to this. And beyond the long-lasting relationships with patients, is that ability to get people beyond just feeling better, but better than the baseline that they were before they before you even met.
Because it is a wake up call for diet and some of our habits. And I'm reassessing my everything I eat and drink, um, as a result of this, and even because I have some other issues we can talk about going forward that were discovered as a result of the kidney stone. But it is a kind of a wake up call. I'm 67 and right now I'm as old as I've ever been. I've no experience at this age, and alternatively, I'm as young as I'll ever be. So it's a balancing act that I've been. So you picked urology because you were inspired from your very first surgery, which was your circumcision. Amazing. You knew immediately. That's me.
Yeah, no one can say they knew they wanted to be a doctor or a specialty before I did. That's for sure.
People, one of the big words in our culture today is people getting over trauma, PTSD. And I still tell people I'm still getting over my circumcision. Once I get past that, I can deal with all the shit that happened in high school. But until then, I'm still working through. I'm still working through that incredible event for which I was not consulted. I didn't sign off on. Every other surgical situation, including the last one, which I had with you, I had to sign off and make, there was no.
Yeah. Well, you were under 18. Parents sign off on that.
Yeah, I was under 18. I think I was under 8 days. I'm not sure, but yeah. So your background is an interesting one because you come from Belgium, of all places, which by way of Yeshiva University and a little detour, apparently studying Talmud in Israel, and then you're at the absolute pinnacle of academic Mount Everest at Harvard Medical School. So I'm just curious what your life was like in Belgium. I mean, it's has an
Well,
interest. Go ahead.
it was really great. I grew up in Belgium. It was a great place to grow up, and with some added benefits. There's so many cultural aspects to Belgium. So it's a country. It's a little country, but it actually has three cultural divides. Speaking different languages. You have the Flemish speaking part, the French speaking part, the German speaking part, and so I'm fortunate already, just by virtue of being born, to be able to speak those three languages, and then getting a little bit of Hebrew from schooling, and then some Yiddish from the grandparents, and then what else? And so between all those languages, a lot of people have to do a lot of Duolingo for that. But fortunately, for me, that was just given to me just by virtue of being born in a certain place. And schooling was great. And ultimately, after high school, I decided to pursue 2 years studying Talmud and Jewish thought in Israel, which certainly was advantageous to me in the way I think, critical thinking aspects of that. Like you said, through New York, and originally thinking I wanted to be an engineer because I'm a little bit of a problem solver, but
Hmm?
ended up with the medicine bug. And then I went to Boston, absolutely loved Boston, spent 5 years at Harvard Medical School, which led into my residency in general surgery and then urology at Mass General Hospital, which is also in Boston,
Right.
to my fellowship here at UCLA. So it's been quite the ride for sure.
So I'm curious first, let's go back to the Jewish community in Belgium, which by all rights is probably begins with the arrival of the Roman Empire and the Roman legions. My mother was born in Berlin, and her family on my mother's side, is from Germany. And I was reading about how the Jewish wine merchants were servicing the Roman legions all the way into I guess what is today Germany, and now the Low Countries, of which Belgium is one of them. And
In fact, Belgium, they were the Gauls, right? And they were
mhm,
those who withstood Julius Caesar and the Romans. But that's for a different time. But no, after the Holocaust, there was certain an increase in the Jewish community in Belgium from people who left Germany and Poland as a result of the Holocaust afterwards. My grandparents being one of those people, and initially a thriving community, now a little less so, due to the unfortunately rising anti-Semitism in Belgium and in Europe as a whole. There's been quite an exodus of many of the Jews there, towards the U.S., towards the UK, towards Israel, whatever it may be. But thriving community, many people in the diamond industry,
Right.
historically, it being a center of the diamond industry, now again less so. But it's kind of that small, big town, but small town mentality, kind of everyone knows everyone, everybody knows what's going on in your backyard. It was a very nice place to grow up, and I'm very fortunate to have done
And you say the specter of anti-Semitism in Belgium is forcing people to pack up and split. Is that is that because of native Belgium resentment? Is that because of an influx of immigration from the Middle East? Where do you think that's what do you think
I
that's
think it's a
about?
combination. Honestly, I think it's a combination. One thing that while it's still a problem in the U.S. sometimes too, as you may very well know, the fact that this is such a cultural melting pot, especially here in California, you know, that's something that's very nice. We have people from all different cultures. There's no real one culture. If everyone did a genetic ancestry test here, we're pretty much all related somehow here. So that's kind of nice.
As a matter of fact, at Cedars, where my father had a AAA, which is for those that don't know, it's an abdominal aortic aneurysm, and he's had a number of little corrective procedures as a result of that, mostly at Cedars. And it's like the United Nations converged on my father to heal them. Whether it's the Filipino nurse, the Iranian cardiologist, the Indian.
No, absolutely.
It's like
Absolutely.
fantastic.
And that's what I love about it. Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. So I read where one of the more famous Jewish people from Belgium is Jean-Claude Van Damme, or at least from a Jewish family. Am I just off base with that, or is that crazy?
I don't think he's Jewish, but yes, he is one of the more
Oh, I
famous.
read like somewhere like important Jews from Belgium, and it says Jean-Claude Van Damme. He doesn't strike me as Jewish, especially with the Van in the middle of his name. But
I don't know. You'd be teaching me something new. Not that I know of, at least, but could be true.
right, right. Well, then when I normally think of it kind of in the American geographical consciousness, which is extremely ignorant. People like Belgium, was it Holland, or what Anne Frank? It all sort of mixes into one, but there is some cultural and racial identity differentiation amongst these various cultures.
100%. Yes, not only in language and dialect and culture and food. I mean, it's like saying California is the same as Texas, or very different.
Right. And so you went to Israel to study Talmud. And my own thinking about that, and that would seem to put you more on a track towards maybe being in the legal profession where you're parsing and debating laws and stuff. But I'm
You know
curious
what?
about that.
You're right about that. That being said, it's kind of the Talmud is a kind of book that allows you to break concepts into elements, and I think that's useful for anything, not only for law, which is the obvious kind of uh, way to go, but in medicine as well, we're constantly problem solving and taking things back to their elements. And whether I'm operating and have to think about multiple ways of approaching a problem, or I'm seeing a patient and thinking about, well, he's got this problem, but he's got that problem. How do I reconcile these things? How do I best treat this patient? Those skills and that way of thinking certainly has helped me throughout my career thus far.
So it creates sort of an intellectual discipline of uh, of problem solving.
Right, and the rigor, people who go and do this and study, they're spending many hours of the day doing this, and so you kind of learn how to, that certainly prepared me for medical school, just being able to sit down with my textbooks and kind of have the discipline to just, or as they say in Yiddish, the Sitzfleisch, which means basically the meat of sitting, essentially,
Oh,
to be able to
Sitzfleisch,
just
Sitzen und Fleisch. Zwei
yes,
Worte zusammen
yeah,
gemacht,
yeah,
Sitzfleisch. Ich
Yes,
verstehe.
exactly,
Keine Problem.
exactly. Uh, there you go. I forgot about your German origins.
Well,
Uh,
actually, I learned on my own because I fell in love with some German exchange student, and I decided I would impress her and learn German. And because I never heard a word of it growing up, and certainly my mother, who was a kind of a baby refugee from Berlin, um, she was very anxious to assimilate, and be, especially coming here, in the shadow of World War II, anything associated with being German, even if you were Jewish, um, a lot of people might not make that distinction in, middle class America. So my mom kind of avoided it. Having said that, I returned with her. She went to Berlin a few years back, and I decided I would meet her there because this is her hometown, and I felt she has every right to her hometown as any other German person, even though she doesn't feel comfortable or, you know, necessarily welcome there. So I went and met her and surprised her at the breakfast table at the Adlon Hotel, which is a very famous hotel right near the Berlin, the Brandenburg Gate,
mhm.
because I feel like Jewish history there, I'm entitled to it just as much as anybody else. I don't agree with National Socialism and Hitler. So, yeah, I have a stake in that culture and that history. And it precedes the Third Reich by hundreds and hundreds of years. So I felt like embrace that. And maybe there's a larger lesson or a larger arc of history that can also be honored. And I was just thinking, so like Belgium, so there's the post-Holocaust influx into Belgium, but then I think the Belgian people, some of them came to the aid of the Jews in Belgium during World War
Some
II.
did, like in any country, both in France, in Holland, in Belgium, there were those righteous people, and it's not an easy task, to do that when you're under fire yourself and at risk yourself. But there were extraordinary people in these different places during extraordinary times.
Wow. So talk about, you go to yeshiva. At some point, you make a decision. I'm a doctor. Was that because there were doctors in your family? There was pressure. The nice Jewish boy. There's only two careers: a doctor, a lawyer. Or how did that happen for you?
Well, you know the joke, right? Where the mom's sitting next to her son, next to another woman at her son, the Jewish mom's at her son's presidential inauguration. Oh wow, oh wow! I can't believe you don't. Can you imagine your son being the president? And she goes, "You should meet his brother, the doctor." But no, I mean, for me, not really. There weren't many doctors in my family. There are not now. I've got a brother-in-law who's a doctor too. But there were none, and the decision really came from me. I think my grandparents, who were Holocaust survivors, really inspired me. They were people who always really enjoyed every moment of life and really taught me the value of life, be it, their interest in art, in literature, or just in people as a whole. And I think that appreciation for life as a whole kind of guided me towards a career in wanting to help other people and in medicine as a whole. And then, so that led me to be pre-med and then took me to medical school.
And medical school was Harvard. So that sounds like I we were talking about getting into Harvard is like it's amazing. Not as hard as being a sperm and finding an egg, but nonetheless, it's. I mean, just to become a human being, I say it's harder to get than getting into Harvard. But once you're a human being, it's still hard to get into Harvard, and you managed to pull off both. So congratulations.
Thank you, thank you.
What was that experience like? I mean,
It was great. For me, it was really about, my classmates and the people I was surrounded by, both professors and the people, more than, medical school is medical school. You see a doctor, you see an MD, they're going to have the same information. But really, for me, it was that interaction with those special people, both my classmates who I still maintain relationships with and have close relationships with, or, or the professors who were very inspiring and very 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 good at what they did. And so being able to absorb that from those people was a very special and something I don't take for granted.
now I saw this quote, and I think I saw it on your Twitter page or wherever. Practice is we're talking about medicine. The practice is an art, not a trade, a calling, not a business, a calling in which your heart will be exercised equally with your head. And I found that because you plucked it out somewhere. So that means it's the most idealistic of callings for you.
Yeah, it is. It really is. I mean, I think certainly, as much as the press has you think that, doctors are making too much money and this and that, and because of this, yeah, the financial reward of being a doctor is not what it used to be. I can tell you that. And if
Right.
you're doing it and you're going through those years of training and the hours and waking up at 4 in the morning to go to the hospital and doing that and not on a weekly basis, not on a or a daily basis sometimes, you're really doing it because you feel that calling. And if you don't, then it's not the right field for you if your goals are something else than that.
Well, when my grandparents came to this country, they converted from Judaism to capitalism, and they've been extremely observant ever since. And growing up as I did in the San Fernando Valley, there was an expectation of people of my age that if you made it to become a doctor, that you were entitled to be a very rich person. Um, and that was just built into the whole expectation, as I recall. I think it's different now. I mean, for a lot of reasons, and but
Absolutely.
yeah. So you a couple questions I have. So one of the things about the medical world today is I sprained my ankle, I see the podiatrist. If my ear aches, I got to go to the ear, nose, and throat. The ear, nose, and throat sends me to the ear guy because he doesn't want to deal. He's just more of a nose and throat guy. All the specialization. There's all these systems, and like, how much is that frustrating to you or liberating? Because you're in this sort of discipline, which is urology.
Right, right. No, so you're absolutely right. We've gone to this very niche kind of medicine subspecialty world where, I'm not going to lie to you, I have that kind of niche too.
Right.
I did a fellowship in treating, you know, prostate cancer focally in certain areas to avoid, the side effects of a prostatectomy or removal of prostate or minimally invasive treatments for enlarged prostates. That's kind of what my niche is. But back to your question, I still believe it. I do kind of everything in urology because I enjoy it, but B, I don't want to lose touch with that. I don't want to be so narrowly focused in one thing, and I think I'd find that boring to just do one thing over and over again. And so I love to do it all. But you're right that in many fields of medicine, you have to go to three subspecialists until you find that guy who works on that cell in your ear, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah, I
And
have a felon on my left pinky. I went to the index. He only does felons on the index
exactly.
finger. I had to go to the pinky felon guy to get it properly lanced. He's only does the pinkies. He's the best pinky guy in town. How do I know he's the best guy in town? He's got all the movie star celebrities on his wall. That's how you know. That's the thing about LA. How do you know? Like, if a doctor is great at surgery, like I couldn't tell you. I wouldn't know. I could tell you who's the best hitter on the Dodgers, or I can really tell you about acting. I can observe that, but I don't know jack about how to make a judgment about a surgeon, except like the joke is, what movie celebrities, the stars, do they have on their wall? Well, Tom Selleck. He did Tom Selleck's kidney. Are you kidding? He's the best.
I'll
You
tell you
know,
that becomes very difficult in urology. Most celebrities don't want to be on a urologist's wall for obvious reasons. But no, you're right. But I always tell people, they ask me, "Oh, should I see this doctor, that doctor for recommendations?" And obviously some people have a reputation or a better name, but ultimately it comes to that gut feeling you have when you interact with the doctor. I think most people have that where they say, "Oh, you know what? I trust this guy or this woman. You know, I feel comfortable with them." And that's the biggest thing really, because this is the person you're entrusting, whether it's your pain management with, whether it's cancer or your overall health or whatever it may be. And so I do believe that that's a big component of things, is that gut feeling, same way when you're in a relationship, or you decide, hey, this is the one. What do you know?
Yeah, but then
You
then you're
got
really flying blind.
you're flying blind, exactly. So all you can go by is, hey, what's my gut feeling? And I think people find that often that steers you in the right way, and the outcome ends up being pretty good.
Well, by way of recommendation, I did not witness the surgery. I was anesthetized for it. So I couldn't say, the guy's great. I couldn't tell you. But I had a stent that had to come out for which I was fully conscious for. And you handled the trigger with the thing that went up the one-way street. It was like Yasha Heifetz with the violin. I couldn't believe it. It was
No, no,
so
no.
by way of referral, I cannot. He got the kidney stone, but I didn't personally observe it. But I did see him personally retrieve the stent as I held my breath and cringed, less because of the pain, more because of like the thought of what was actually happening. Do you know what I mean? It's like I was way more nervous for that than I was for the kidney stone extraction. It was because it's natural, I guess. I don't know.
No, obviously, and but while no one sees the surgery in action, obviously the outcomes and the way you feel afterwards are really the testimony to 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 the success of the surgery, and I guess the skill of the surgeon as well.
Now, I had a surgery some years back to remove a schwannoma growth on my spinal cord. So it was an intradural spinal excision. At the time, it was causing me a lot of pain. I thought I just had a disc injury, but when they did the imaging, and my experience, I'm blanking, right? Dr. Karana and another doctor, and he came in like he was not the most benevolent, soft, kind of guy, but he came in like he was a gunslinger, like I'm the guy, watch out, I don't need to be your friend, but I'll get it. There was this sort of kind of profile of a little bit of cockiness and arrogance, and I thought, well, that's good. I got a lot of friends. I don't, I need somebody who's friggin' can do it, and he
Yeah.
did.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And you'll notice that with different specialties, the personalities are sort of different. So urologists as a whole, most people will say we're kind of that funny bunch, that humorous group of people, because it sort of attracts that kind of physician to the mold. So, and we also deal with patients longitudinally. So it's not just one visit. I'm fixing you and out you go. I don't see you anymore. It's more like, well, we got to manage this. There's some chronic issues. And so, similar to your primary care physician or other physicians that manage more chronic problems, we develop relationships with our patients. And so, that more of a, pleasant, mannerism and bedside manners becomes more important, and kind of attracts those kinds of people to to our field.
Oh, that's interesting. That's interesting. Well, I'm in full disclosure mode. One of the things that happened when I went in for they did the kidney stone is they found a visitor on the other kidney, a renal mass, and full disclosure, it's coming out. And I just feel pretty good about it. I mean, I don't know. It's just, I feel great right now, so I'm just counting the days, and hopefully it'll be an easy outcome. And
Yeah, and these are things we call, the incidentalomas. Back in the day, not every person who came in with, abdominal pain got a CT scan, right? When they got into the hospital. And now, if your thumb hurts, you're getting a CT scan, right? So,
right.
so we're picking up a lot of these masses that, may or may not have had an impact on your life, whether you found it or not. Obviously, certain times you're happy because you found it early, whereas you might have never known about it because it might have just grown to, get outside of the kidney and metastasize. So, there's benefit, and there's pros and cons to all these CT scans, and having all that information. And we're in the age of we need to have all this information, and with genetic screening and with all that, well, there's a lot of pros, But then again, having too much information sometimes not the best thing either. So there's a
Well,
fine balance.
what we do in our life, and we saw this sort of thing be arbitrated over the last few years with the COVID, but ultimately we're managing risk. There's the risk of doing nothing. There's the risk of ignorance, of happy ignorance. There's also the risk of intervention. And, you know, you try to intelligently manage risk. And there is no path through life, as far as I can see, without some risk.
Yeah. And I'll tell you, and you're probably could speak more to this as it is to me. I'm not a paternalistic kind of authoritarian doctor where I'm telling you this is the way to go. No, that's not my job. My job is to tell you, hey, here are four roads you can take. This road, might be a little more difficult, might be a little more uphill, but you know what? The reward might be better on the other end. This way might be a little more curvy. This way might be that, and to tell you what are the pros and cons, and then ultimately based on, because we're treating you, we're not treating the ailment, right? Based on your goals, or the patient's goals, I should say, um, develop a treatment plan that's in line with those goals. Because just because something's important to you, someone might say, with the cancer, I just want to live my life. If I got another 10 years, I'm good with that. I don't want to do anything about that. Someone will say, I want the extra month. If it means an extra month, I'm going to do everything. And there's no right or wrong to that. No one's
Mhm.
no one's right or wrong. It's your right. It's your truth. It's what you want. And that's how I try to guide my patients in terms of their goals and their preferences, so they can make and educate them, so they can make an educated decisions, and decide how they want to proceed with whatever the ailment might be.
Yeah, well, there's just risk. There's no path without risk. I would like to, I kind of want to continue my creativity and my athletic life and my professional world. And
And you will.
I feel good, and I'm grateful for, even for the agony that I went through. At some level, I'm starting to feel the gratitude for it, because sometimes with pain, you get a thing called wisdom or knowledge, self awareness in a way that maybe, you know, you couldn't have otherwise. So I'm going to start trying to live in the gratitude of that. Yeah.
No.
So tell me now, about your practice here, because I'm a patient. It's Beverly Hills Urology, and you have a team. Did the team exist before you got here, or did you help form it? Just talk to me about your
Yeah,
practice.
so I'm part of a group. I have some partners, and I joined. I have an office here. I have an office in the Valley. I operate, at some of the major hospitals here, at Cedars, at St. John's, some hospitals in the Valley. And no, the team is great. We have a wonderful receptionists, up to the MAs, up to the nurses, schedulers. Thankfully, um, you got to train your staff to do things the way you want it to be done, so that things are efficient for both you and for the patient. And I think we've managed to do that in a very good way. I mean, you could speak to the results and the efficiency and how you feel about it, but certainly I'm very much available to my patients, and to get them through the process and through whatever the needs may be.
Well, you were. I mean, after I met you, and I got released. First of all, I didn't really know that much about kidney stones. I thought, okay, I got a kidney stone. All right, like, what are we going to do? I'm going to zap it, get it out. And no, you're going to wait a month.
Well, no, depending on the size of the stone, there's an option to try to pass it. And if a stone is small and is located pretty far down, in the ureter, obviously you want to avoid intervention if you can. And there's sometimes that comes with a few pains, and sometimes you pass the stone and you're like, oh, great. And
Right.
sometimes you don't.
And I didn't.
You didn't. And that's why we had to treat you. But, fortunately, everything went well.
It went well. Yeah, it was fine. I mean, literally that day, I knew I was better right away. I mean, it's just like, I'm better. So Beverly Hills Urology was something that existed before, or you joined it?
It existed before. Yeah, I joined it. Yeah.
Wow. And so, I mean, there must be a dimension to, okay, you're practicing your craft, your art, and you're treating, as the Maimonides quote loosely says, the whole person, not just the urinary tract or whatever, the prostate. But it seems like there's another dimension to running a medical practice, and that's business.
Yeah, fortunately, we have office managers to take care of that aspect. You notice I really don't think about that aspect of things when I treat the patients. Whenever patients come to me, does this insurance? I just tell them talk to the office manager. If I had to think about billing and what this costs, what that costs, it would take away from my ability to take care of patients. And so all I care about is doing what's right and taking care of the patient, and whatever the other stuff is, that's why we hire people to take care of that aspect of things.
So it's managing, it's creating that firewall so you can do your job the
Absolutely.
best
I
way
think I think
possible.
people I think people often get blindsided by, what the financials are on this and that. And I don't want to have those thoughts or even put those thoughts in my mind because I want to do what's right. And, in fact, I had a patient who came with a certain stone situation, and I said, "Well, these are the options for you." Someone had recommended a different option. I said, "You're welcome to do it. I know why this person is doing it because, quite frankly, it's less work and the financial um, aspects of it are better. But I'm just not going to do it because I don't think this is what's right for you." And this is the one time I don't, as you said, I usually give you all the options, give you the risk, but I just thought this was the wrong thing. I said, "This is not going to solve your problem, and you're just going to end up in the same place." So I'm happy to send you to a second referral, and I know some people will do this, and that's what I did. And believe it or not, patient came back after doing that surgery.
Oh, so
Yeah,
they didn't have
it
a good
didn't
outcome.
work. It didn't work. Yeah, and I'm sad that I was right, but on the other hand, you know, we take an oath. We take an oath to do what we think is right and do no harm. And if you think something's not going to work, you're doing harm by doing it.
Right. Well, alternatively too, when I sit down with a doctor or you, I'm asking for your best judgment. So, like, I don't think, I mean, I have my own intuition and understanding of my own body, but I, it would take a lot for me to go against somebody who lives in this world, their best judgment. You know what I mean? Like, that's sort of how I feel.
You're probably in the minority though, because most people have gotten their MDs from Google these days, and
Oh,
so that's really what you're, going against. And so that's fine. And we're like I said, I'm here to educate, and that's all I want to do is educate you, risks, benefits.
when I got the kidney stone, the last thing I did was wanted to Google it because I just felt like I don't want to be my own doctor. Even a doctor probably shouldn't be his own doctor. The one thing I did though was I scanned the QR code on this, and they gave me like a website and a treatment or just dietary recommendations. And now that the stone is out of me, then I feel like the journey of knowledge can begin. Wow, Dr. Dave. Um, I just want to say to whoever's watching or listening, because this will live as an audio only podcast as well, that I wrote a review, and I hope you read it. And but I've had really just a wonderful experience with you, albeit a painful one and an eye-opening one. But I really just value you as a person. I so appreciate a couple, some really critical moments where I mean, I thought I was going to pass out. I was in so much pain, and I left a message. What the hell do I? And you called me back, or it was like and I just that was meaningful. It didn't make the pain go away at the moment, but
You're saying my soothing voice doesn't soothe the pain?
no, it was just kind of like, okay, he cares. He's watching. I mean, the thing about kidney stones, I mean, I'm not telling you, but you it's very painful, and you can't necessarily make it go away in the short term. It's I think some of these meds are a little bit, depending on how severe it is. I mean, they're limiting about, how, and I was cautious to take them anyway because of.
And the thing with renal colic or kidney stone pain is that it can come and go. So you could be fine for a couple days, and then that stone can move a little bit, and then you're back there for a little bit. So it's a managing game. And when you choose that path of trying to pass the stone, if possible, that's the con of trying to see if it'll pass. You got to deal through those pains sometimes.
Yeah, and when I was feeling good, I went out to Malibu and I was surfing, and I'm like hanging five off the lip in Malibu, and then I'm driving home and I went, oh, and so I just learned to deal with it.
Yeah, you were telling me your strainer became your best friend.
Oh yeah, I was living with my strainer. I was thinking of having it made into some sort of jewelry, as like around my neck with some embedded with maybe some of your Belgian diamond family friends. I don't know, a diamond encrusted strainer, and God forbid I need it again, in the future. Um,
A great idea for a startup.
yeah, yeah. Retire your strainer. Well, it was like I was attached to that thing, and I don't think I missed a drop, but I didn't see a stone. I never saw it. I could never tell if it was moving or it was close. It just sort of, as you said, that in all likelihood, because you went and got the damn thing, that probably wasn't going anywhere in my own case.
It was not.
Yeah, so that's the way it goes. Dr. Dave, man, I hope this has been fun for you. I want to just give a wholehearted recommendation to Dr. David. It's Kuppermann or Kupperman. I don't know what's
Kuppermann.
Kuppermann, which is definitely has the low country kind of thing. I want to give my full recommendation to Dr. David Kuppermann for all your urological needs. And I'm hoping you're digging life here in LaLa Land.
Yeah, it's been great so far. I get to meet people like you. What's better than that?
Oh, okay. Well, I could think of some other things, but I know myself pretty well. It's not that great, but but no, I really appreciate that you looked after me, and like I said, I do have another chapter left in this kidney journey. So hopefully, it'll just you know. Sometimes you just have to be brave in life. It's like fuck it, I'll get through this. Whatever. Uh,
I have full confidence.
okay, great. Well, I have confidence in you. And I wanted to, is there anything else that maybe I didn't touch on that you want to share?
Just want to make sure, Movember is coming up and Men's Health Month. And, one thing I always, yeah, one thing I always tell people is get screened for prostate cancer. If you're 45 to 50 years old, or sometimes if you have a family history, even earlier at 40, get your PSA. It saves lives. And if you're young, get a testicular exam, examine your own testicles. That's
I
a
do every morning, generally between 6:30 and 8. I do a
takes you
rigorous
an hour and a
testing
half, doesn't it?
program. I'm doing a rigorous testing program.
But whatever it may be, this is important, and these are things that can save lives. And when you don't do it, can be have serious consequences. So I hope that all your listeners here, you know, take that into account. And then just a plug, you for urologists in general, not just for me. There's a wide spectrum of things that urologists treat, and so we treat females for incontinence, for kidney stones. We treat males for whether you have any issues with your bladder, with your prostate, with your testicles, with your kidneys, infertility, anything it may be. There's a wide spectrum of things that we treat, and so um, I'm happy to see anybody who's near you, but just make sure that you take care of yourself, get screened, be proactive about your health, and things will be good.
Preventative medicine is still the best medicine, right?
Absolutely.
Well, let's leave it with that because that's a message, for all of us. Um, and nobody's immune to that and the risks of being human. So you can hang on the other side, but I want to say first, triple thanks to Dr. David Kuppermann by way of Belgium through Yeshiva University, rebounding off of Harvard and finding himself right here in the megalopolis of LaLa Land in Beverly Hills. He helped me through a gauntlet that I didn't anticipate, and I am feeling way better for it now. And actually, today, probably the best I felt. And I'm so grateful for that. And thanks for doing the show. And folks, you're free to reach out to Dr. David if in need. And I can say without hesitation that he will be there for you, body, mind, and soul. So till next time, as I always say this, namaste, shalom, and aloha. By that I mean namaste, aloha. See ya.